Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back for another broadcast from where I sit. I'm your host, Dr. C. Uh, Today's video is going to be an actual class. We're actually going to teach you something here. Obviously, we've been doing that. We're introducing a lot of Black history to you, but we want to put the information that we've been giving you right now. We want to actually give you something that you can put to work immediately. Okay. So without further ado, let us get straight into today's lesson. And before we actually do that, we're going to go ahead and wish everybody a happy Black History Month. Um, I think from one of my recordings from one of the earlier weeks, I was asking, not you guys, but I was asking members of my family, have you seen any ads or any publications or anything celebrating Black History Month? And for the most part, I haven't seen anything until just recently, and we're already into the middle of February. So we want to make sure that from where we sit, we want to wish you a happy Black History Month, and I hope you're going out and you're celebrating and learning and teaching your family, your children about Black excellence, because I think that is very important that we all know how excellent we actually are. I think that you're going to find these upcoming months and years, as long as the Trump regime, dictatorship is in power, that they're going to try and diminish the accomplishments of the Black community as much as possible. And it's up to us to make sure that we know how excellent we are and let the rest of the world know how excellent we are as well. So, from us to you, happy Black History Month. And we hope that you celebrate Black history throughout the rest of the year. All right. So, what we're going to be talking about this afternoon is collective wealth building. Now, we're going to go ahead and get to our historical context here in just a moment. But I want to talk about collective wealth building. And by the way, when you think about collectivism, you think about socialism or communism. This is not what that is all about. We're talking about collective wealth building in your family, in your extended family, and then eventually spreading that out to the rest of the Black community of where you are. When I talk about collective wealth building, I'm actually talking about families taking care of families, Black community taking care of the Black community. And if you talk about your nuclear family and then your extended family, then we talk about the next place where Black folks go to socialize, worship, pray, etc. Then we will be talking about the Black church, mosque, synagogue, if there are any Black Jews out there, which, by the way, that is also another history lesson that I would like to share with y'all later on down the road. But we want to think of collective wealth building in our community. And when I say our community, and we've mentioned this to you again and again in previous broadcasts, that it is important to keep hard earned Black dollars in the Black community. And the only way to do that is to support the Black community. So I have up here our historical context. And some of you may have heard of, if you've listened and pay attention to Black history, the Green Book. Of course, the Green Book was created by Victor H. Green. There's a real good story there. And of course, this was during the time when Jim Crow was in effect, and where Black folks, when they traveled around the country, can only stay at certain places. It's particularly here in the South, where it was said for colored only, like the Hotel Clark right here, as you can see with the sign. But the fact of the matter is that all of these more established places were not available to us So Victor Green came up with the Green Book for Black motorists, people who were traveling, Black people who were traveling around the country, where they could go to get service because they couldn't get service anywhere else. And that's why the Green Book was established. And the other important thing about this historical context is that the idea of the Green Book got out in Black communities all over the country, used the Green Book to patronize each other. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about collective wealth building. Of course, I have some things written down here. Historically speaking, an invaluable resource for Black travelers of this era, 1938, 47, 54, 63. So, throughout the most of the Jim Crow era, this was an invaluable resource for people when they traveled. The other thing is that Black people were forced to patronize each other's businesses because we were not allowed to patronize white establishments. That is a fact. An interesting story that I would like to tell when I was in the Coast Guard, and my ex-wife and I and our three kids were traveling. We were in the state of Mississippi. We were headed up, I think we were headed to Tennessee. I can't remember where we were going. Anyway, we were headed somewhere. Maybe we were headed to my ex-wife's mother's house, her mother and father's house. I think that's where we were. And we wore in our uniforms. My wife and I at the time were both in our uniforms. This was in the 1980s. And I think one of my kids had to go to the bathroom or something like that. And we ended up having to stop at a restaurant to try and use the bathroom. And of course, I asked my wife, Linda, at the time, hey, why don't you see if you could get us something to eat as well while we're here? Because get something to go. Well, they went to go use the bathroom and she stood in line for a really long time, probably almost an hour, and they refused to serve her. This was in the 1980s, and she was in her Coast Guard uniform, and they refused to serve her. She came out. I said, well, maybe I need to go in. And she looked at me. She said, no, you're only going to make things worse. And I said, what do you mean I'm only going to make things worse? Because you're a Black man in a Coast Guard uniform. They ignored her. But if I were to go in and demand some service, I was going to cause some trouble. So we went on our way. This was in the 1980s. Just think about going somewhere and you are refused service just because you have Black skin. This is the reason why the Green Book was an invaluable resource at this time. And yes, and I make this statement here, and I think it's important to put it out. Perhaps it is necessary now to keep Black commerce in our Black communities. By the way, if you haven't been paying attention, the white establishment in this country is looking to go back to an era where people of color, particularly Black people, are not welcomed in white establishments. Okay? It's going to come. Okay? So perhaps it is high time that we, as Black people, start keeping commerce in our Black communities. And then, of course, the last statement down there, how can we get this started? Therefore, hence the lesson. Well, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to start with the family. Start with your nuclear family, like these beautiful people right here. Family of four, obviously. Some of you are a family of four, young family, older families, like I have right now. All of my kids are grown kids. My youngest is 18 and she's about to graduate from high school. Okay. So it is probably now best to start talking about how do we build collective wealth within our family. So if you're a husband and wife and you got young kids, perhaps you need to start talking about that. And yes, include your children, your young kids, like these two beautiful kids right here, are not too young to understand what building wealth means and what it takes to do it. Okay. So start with the family. Then go to your extended family. It looks like here in this particular picture that we probably have about, I want to say three, maybe four different generations here. And I would be willing to venture a guess that this family has missing some members that are not in this photo. I remember when I was in the Coast Guard and we had a family reunion down in Virginia. That is what I call an extended family. We're talking at least 100 plus family members, people I have never met, right? That I have never seen that were part of our extended family. That's what it takes to build collective wealth, but you have to start somewhere. So start with your nuclear family and then spread the word once you start to have success. Okay. So start with your nuclear family, then go to your extended family. And now it is time for you to build your family financial plan. Okay. What does that entail? Well, first of all, you need to talk to each other about it. And let the family members, the members of your family, let them know how serious you are about getting something like this done. Okay. And then once you start talking to them about how important it is to build collective family wealth, then get the members of that family, especially if you have members in your family that are working. I'll use my family as an example. So me and my wife were both still working. My oldest daughter, Deja, is working. She's doing pretty well for herself. My son, like I said, is in the Army, so he's working. And of course, we do expect sometime this summer when my youngest graduates that she'll be working too. Okay, hopefully we can get her out this house and working as well. And so start talking about the various goals that every member in that family has. What are the financial goals that each member has? Put them down on the list, talk about the goals, talk about how serious they need to be about those goals, right? And so I have up here examples. And of course, you don't have to come up with the same examples that I have. You could talk about whatever is unique for every member in your family. But I can tell you right now, buying a home, buying a car, starting a business, saving for college or trade school, right? If they want to go to trade school, that's fine too. Start saving for starting a family, saving money to pay bills, investing in the stock market for retirement. And last but certainly not least on this list is an emergency fund. Every family must have an emergency fund. Okay. Every family should have an emergency fund because emergencies are always coming up. And by the way, because of where we are right now, by the way, there are a lot of millions of Americans that are losing jobs right now because of where we are and because of the short-sightedness of the Trump dictatorship regime. I'm going to keep calling it, by the way. That's exactly what it is. It is a dictatorship regime. And their lust for power and money at the expense of everybody else. You should definitely have an emergency fund. Okay. So talk with the members of your family about the kinds of goals you guys have. All right. Now, once you put together a list of goals, then you need to determine what those short-term goals are, midterm goals, and long-term goals. A short-term goal is if you're saving and investing for something that you're going to need that money for about a year or less. Midterm goals are from a year to about 5 years. And long-term goals, the biggest example of a long-term goal is saving for retirement, and in some cases, saving for college if you're starting out with kids that are very young. Okay, so you got to have short-term goals, midterm goals, and long-term goals. But I want to get to your collective investing plan, what you set for the goals that you set here, and you need to set a vesting schedule. Now, what I mean by that is setting vesting schedule that every member of that family that is working is that what they're willing to give in to the vesting, right? For that, for whatever goals you set, and that they are comfortable with sticking to. It is a very important that when you set a vesting schedule, that every member, every collective member of that family that is participating can keep it up. Okay. We don't want to set a vesting schedule for somebody who can't keep it up. In other words, that they can't be consistent with. If you're setting a vesting schedule where each member of that family puts in a certain amount of money every week, every month, however you set it, that they have to keep doing it until your goals are met. It's very important to set a vesting schedule. And when you set that vesting schedule, make sure that it is an amount that each member can pay towards the fund to fund these short-term goals, midterm goals, and your long-term goals, and that they are able to do it consistently, okay? And obviously, if you're going to do that, then you're also going to elect somebody that you trust that's in the family that can manage this money that you're going to put into the vesting schedule set aside for your short-term, midterm, and long-term goals, okay? And once you start putting this money aside, I highly recommend that you put this money aside where you keep the money in the Black community. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about either a Black-owned bank or savings and loan. Or if you're going to use a financial advisor, I encourage you to find yourself a Black financial planner. They are out there. And there are a lot of them that are good, that will work with you to help you reach your financial goals. Do not put your money where people who do not have your interests at heart. Okay. Find yourself a fiduciary, somebody who looks after you, the investor, right? You, the saver. Okay. And I highly recommend that you find yourself a Black financial planner that is going to look out for you. Somebody who is going to not only take care of you, but would be willing to take care of your whole family. Now, that's how it works, right? That is how it works. I remember when I was a kid and of course, he was a white guy, but my parents trusted this man. He would pay our family a visit every month. And I think he was an insurance salesman, but evidently my family had insurance and he would pay a visit to them every month. He was there every month. Okay. I remember seeing him there. Right. And of course, me, a kid, I didn't know exactly what they were talking about. I knew why he was there. He was there to talk about money with my parents. Okay. So have a collective investing plan, set for each goal, and set a consistent vesting schedule for every member that is participating in your collective financial plan. All right. Now, I batted around quite a bit because I didn't want to assume that members of our community didn't know what all of these examples of investments are. I didn't want to assume any of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what some of these investments are. Okay. Now, if you're saving or investing for a short-term goal, and remember we said a short-term goal is where you need money for a year or less, right? And because of that, you're going to want to choose assets that are liquid. In other words, that you can get access to the money as soon as possible, and where these funds that you're saving are going to be low risk. That's why I mentioned either a bank or a savings low, etc. This is where you'll have access to the money right away, and you don't want to lose that money. So you want to make sure that at least your principal is still there. You may not make a whole lot of money because you're choosing a low risk asset, but you at least you know when you need the money that it will be there. That's why we have bank savings, Black-owned banks and savings and loans. Again, we're going to keep harping on that. And where your funds are going to remain liquid, that it's going to be cash that you're going to have access to whenever you need it and right away, and that there is low risk involved. Okay. These are the kinds of investments that you would have for any short-term goals that you set for yourself. Next would be your midterm goals. Now, these midterm goals, like I said, are in between about from a year to about 5 years. Okay. At this particular time, you can take a little bit more risk. And then these are some of the investments that I've placed up here. And of course, there are more, but this is just to give you some examples of what you can get into. You can buy stocks, you can buy bonds. And if you're going to buy stocks, I highly recommend that the stocks that you buy are dividend yielding stocks, right? Some stocks pay dividends, other stocks do not. A lot of tech stocks do not pay dividends, believe it or not. Okay. So you want to make sure that you pick stocks that are going to not be high yielding, but they also pay a high yield in dividends. Dividends is where you are paid by the company, paid by that company for owning that stock. And usually those dividends are paid quarterly every 3 months. Okay. So I have an ETF up here. An ETF is what we call an exchange traded fund. It is like a mutual fund, but it's a little bit more liquid. And the ETF trades just like any other stock does. Okay. So you could also get certificate of deposits or short-term treasury bills. Okay. We will get to some of these banking assets, which would be a certificate of deposit or a short-term T-bill or treasury bill. We will get to those in another lecture, but these are all kinds of asset vehicles that you could get into to satisfy your midterm goals. All right, so coming to your long-term goals, and once again, before we get to the long-term goals, these are just examples of the type of asset vehicles that you can get into once you set up your vesting schedule. Okay. Long-term goals, which of course would be a 401k. If you're working, hopefully, if you're working full-time, that they offer a 401k, you should definitely be participating in your 401k. The other thing I would say about a 401k is that if you have an active 401k with your employer usually would match whatever amount you put into your 401k. In other words, that's free money. Okay. Your employer will match up to 10%, 50%, 20%, whatever it is, what your employer sets up for. You should want to take advantage of that money as much as possible. So if they would match up to 20%, then hey, put 20% aside for your 401k. Okay. If you can, you need to try and take advantage of that as much as you possibly can. Next up, in terms of a long-term investment vehicle would be an IRA, which is an individual retirement account. They have the standard IRA and a Roth IRA. We will talk about those a little bit later in another lecture. Okay. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, God bless you, but there aren't a whole lot of pensions out there anymore these days. But if you have one, yes, that's great. Good on you. Real estate is also a long-term investment goal that you could do. Okay, but we'll get into real estate a little bit later in another lecture. I have here again stocks, bonds, ETFs, CODs, and long-term treasury bills, and of course, currency trading, etc. There are a lot more investment vehicles out there for both your midterm and your long-term goals. These are just examples. Now, the other thing that I would like for you to do, this is a call to action. As you are watching this lecture, write down any questions that you might have, take notes, and feel free to ask me questions about anything that I am presenting to you in this lecture. And the reason why I'm asking you to do that is that, yes, I taught for over 20 years at the higher education level. I taught marketing, I taught finance and economics. So yes, I do know this information pretty well. And if I don't know this information, I would definitely put you on to somebody who does, okay? So we do know what we're talking about when we're talking about these types of investments, examples of investments, and why we think that is very important for your family to start using a collective financial plan, okay? This is very important for you to do, and we're showing you how to do it. So here we go. And examples of success, tell your story. Now, these next few slides is me telling my story or telling you stories about what I've seen in the past. And the reason why I want to tell you these stories is because whatever story you tell with your family of what that goal looks like, you need to tell your family that story, right? So examples of success could be home buying, multiple home buying. And when I say multiple home buying, I'm going to get to a story about that. Setting up a college fund. As you can see, there's a little picture right here where mom is teaching daughter, hey, if you want to go to college, let's start saving your college fund right now. Yes, it takes just a small effort of pointing spare coins into a piggy bank, okay? If you want to share a story of how to buy a home, these are the various steps on how you would do that. Decide if you want to buy a home that is right for you. Yes, home ownership is not right for everyone, but I will say this, here in this country, this is the number one way of building family wealth in America. It is the number way of building family wealth for not just Black families, white families, Asian families, and Hispanic families, and other families that live in this country. It is the number one way to build wealth. So yes, that's the reason why I have this up there. You need to determine your budget for a down payment. This is the story that you need to tell, that you need to establish with your family members. Shop for that mortgage, find your home, make an offer, complete an inspection, and close on your new home. And by the way, it's not going to be this easy because guess what? When you finally decide that you want to buy a home, you're going to be competing with home investors. These are people who buy homes as an investment. Most of these homes are bought up by Wall Street. So yeah, it's going to be tough to try and find a home that you would like to buy, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. So tell your story. Have each member of your family, as you are embarking on this journey to building your collective wealth in your family, extended family, and in your community, this is how you need to do it. This is how you need members of your family in your community to talk about it. tell the story of how and why you want to do this. Now, for me, I got a story. I got a couple of stories that I'd like to share. As you can see from this photograph, um, I'm a photographer. I love taking pictures. And yes, whenever I am finally able to retire, and hopefully it's going to be one day soon, this is one of the things that I would love to do in my retirement. I would love to take pictures. I took this picture down in Destin, Florida. I am a nature freak. I love being out in the outdoors. I love being around nature. And I also like my pictures to tell the story of solitude. Henceforth, the reason why you see the single seagull just riding the winds on this beach at this particular time. It was very windy this day, but it was beautiful. The clouds told a story. They danced around, and this single seagull just spoke to me. That's the reason why I took the picture. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. I would love to become a photographer where I can share my pictures with the world. Again, this is another picture that I took. This one is a few years ago. I believe I went down. This is, by the way, just in case you didn't know, this is Providence Canyon here in Georgia, right near, not too far from Columbus, Georgia, where my son was stationed before they shipped him off to Europe. This is Providence Canyon. It's beautiful down there, guys. And if you live in Georgia, you need to check it out. And unlike the Grand Canyon out in the Southwest, Providence Canyon is a man-made canyon by accident. And of course, if you go down to the park, you'll find that out yourself. But you need to go and check it out. It is amazing, and I wanted to share this picture with you. When I went to this particular park, I spent the whole day there. It was right, I believe it was towards the end of August or the beginning of August. It was hot as all get out. And by the time I was done walking this canyon, walking the rim and inside the canyon, I probably lost about 5 pounds of water from my body. That's how hot it was. But the pictures were definitely worth the effort. So tell your story. Share this story with your family members. Why is this important to you? And why would you want to do this? And what would it take to come up with equipment to get these kinds of pictures, right? So yeah, this is my story. Now, the other thing that I've done in the past, and by the way, I've written these 2 books while I was teaching. And of course, I've been talking about this idea of building wealth for a very long time and what it takes to do it. And I wanted to share with my students that it wasn't that hard or that expensive to publish your own books. And therefore, I published these 2 books, right? One of them is no longer in print, that is Touched, but it is still for sale on Amazon. I can't believe that it is. And Mosaic is also still in print, and it's still available. But what I would like to do is combine these 2 books in a new project. And of course, that would take some money, but that's what I would like to do. That is one of my goals. So yeah, I mean, I'm headed towards retirement, but this is one of my goals. But maybe somebody in your family would like to publish a book or 2 or 3 or whatever, or they would like to get started publishing a book. I don't know. You have to talk to the members of your family to find that out. Now, for me, I'm well on my way to making sure that I can get these 2 books combined in one new publication. And I'm toiling with the title, but it is definitely going to be touched again, or touched two, or something like that. Anyway, both these books are good. I know that. I just haven't had the time to get out there and try and sell them, because teaching is really important to me. And by the way, I did these two books just to show people that it could be done. Okay. That's what I'm about. I'm about teaching people that there is no limit to what you can do. Okay. And yes, I'll keep you abreast of what's coming up once I get this project going. And yes, and it's not up here yet, but I also would like to publish a children's book. Okay. And I already have an idea for that. I just need to get started with it. And one of the things that I've been toiling with, and I will share all of this information with you guys, is that you can get a book published using AI, and it can be done in less than a month. We'll talk about that later. But the ideas of how to build wealth for yourself, your family, your extended family, and your community, the options are boundless, okay, in terms of what you can do. You just have to get the plan started. That's what we're talking about when we talk about collective wealth building. And so this lecture gives you the opportunity to get started. Okay. Again, please absolutely feel free to ask me questions once this video is posted up on YouTube. We will also post this video, links and everything from TikTok, which, by the way, we just opened up a TikTok account. I'm still figuring out how to use it, how to work it. And of course, we are also on Blue Sky. You can ask me questions through TikTok or Blue Sky, or you can go ahead and launch the video and make a comment or ask a question about what we are trying to teach you from today's video. Okay. So feel free to comment and hook up with us, and hopefully you enjoy this lecture. And of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Okay. We do have 10 subscribers. Our goal is to get up to 15 by the end of the month. Please share these videos with others in your community, your family, your network, wherever you are. If you enjoy these videos, please share them with others so that we could get more subscribers. We're trying to get 15 by the end of this month, February. Again, thank you for taking your time out of your day with us from where I sit. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Have a great afternoon.